I drew upon what my father had done and used it in how to act, but also having realized that things had changed. I had been in governance roles before and learned what governance truly was. And I think that helped me, not necessarily knowing everything that you come into, because you're going to experience new things and challenges, right? But I guess I've always been the kind of person that you throw a challenge at me. If I know I can try and do it, I will do it. If I can't do it, I will tell you I cannot do it.
Welcome to Cross Border Interviews, the show where we dive into the insights of municipal political leaders from across Canada. Now, our mission on the show is quite simple. Shine a light on the dedicated individuals who day in and day out work around the council table to shape the communities that we call home. And for today's episode, we travel to the Municipal District of Willow Creek number 26 to speak with Reeve Maryanne Sandberg. Reaching from the Porcupine Hills in the west to Vulcan County and the County of Lethbridge in the east, the Municipal District of Willow Creek number 26 boasts an enviable diversity of terrain, people, and economic opportunity. Blessed with rich agricultural land, the municipality is populated by multi-generational farm and ranch operations, as well as newcomers who have moved here to enjoy the pristine landscape and excellent services. Oil and gas continue to bolster the local economy, and tourism has become a growth industry for the region. One of the largest wind farms in Canada testifies to the forward-thinking character of the small but mighty municipality. In the heart of every thriving community lies a well-crafted strategic plan. But crafting such a plan requires expertise, experience, and a deep understanding of local needs. Enter Strategic Steps, your partner in municipal strategic planning. Strategic Steps' team of experts have years of experience in municipal administration. At Strategic Steps, they just don't develop plans. They co-create homegrown strategies tailored to your unique community. They listen, they collaborate, they empower your community to thrive. Contact Strategic Steps today and take the first step towards a brighter future for your municipality. Call Strategic Steps at 780-416-9255 or visit strategicsteps.ca to get started. Reeve, thank you so much for doing this. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you for hosting me in this beautiful location. I'm looking at somewhat of mountains right now compared to what I was looking at about an hour ago. So thank you so much for having me here today.
Well, you're very welcome. I'm glad to do it. It's just too bad we couldn't actually be in council chambers where you could have the lovely view, but this room will do just great.
This room will do great. I want to start by talking about who you are. Get to know the woman behind the persona of Reeve of the MD of Willow Creek. So I've got to start with the question I've asked every single person who's come on the show. You're no exception, so don't think you're special for this question. Where did your sense of duty to serve your community come from, Reeve?
Well, I'm not sure. I think it could have started way back when I was a child. My father was actually involved in municipal politics. He was a councillor with the Municipality of Lethbridge at that time when their offices were still in Barons. And then they moved to, when they became a county, they moved into Lethbridge. And so my earliest memories of just prior to being a teenager and being a teenager were of my father in municipal government. And I never really thought about it until after I got married. I'd graduated in school and then came to Fort Macleod. And I got involved with Leroy Feuerbottom, who at that time was in the Progressive Conservative Party for Alberta. And he asked me to serve in his constituency, and I did. And I've always been curious and asking questions and getting involved. And then prior to my kids, well, they were already in school when they came in, and after Leroy, he had appointed me to the University of Lethbridge Board of Governors, and I got involved very much there, and I enjoyed it. And after that, then I decided when my kids were in school and there were some issues coming up, and I'm a very issues-oriented person and I like to solve problems, I ran for school board and served on it was Willow Creek School Division, and then was involved at the time when the government was amalgamating the school boards, and we became Livingston Range School Division. So I was very much involved there. And so I've always been interested when topics come up of concern within a community or say with schools or anything like that, and looking for solutions. And not just trying to do them sometimes on my own, but knowing that there's several other people that are asking the same questions, trying to organize them and seeing if there's solutions to them. So I think that's kind of it. Yeah.
So there's a few things I want to unpack there, and I want to start with the stupid question first and then get progressively better at the question.
As I tell my kids, there's no such thing as a stupid question, only a stupid answer.
Challenge accepted, Maryanne. I'm from a generation where if my father had did something, I rebelled and I said, I am not even touching that with a 10-foot pole. You decided, on the other hand, that you saw what your father went through with dealing with the municipal issues when he was a councillor. And you said, I could do that. I want to do that as well. When you were thinking about running, did you ever think to yourself, I wonder what it actually was like for my father when he was a councillor? Because when he was a councillor, there was probably a little bit more engagement compared to what we're seeing now in today's municipal world.
Well, it's true. At that time, councillors were very involved.
Yeah.
Even
and people knew who they were.
Exactly. And they, even up until prior to my becoming a councillor, they were still involved even in this MD, because I can remember our Reeve and our councillor, going around on the roads and actually saying which ones need to be gravelled and those kinds of things. And now it's not so much. And I think, no, I never even thought about that. You
never thought about how your dad was looked upon or how he was held into a standard?
Not really, because people looked to him and they phoned and they treated him as such, that, and I guess that was the respect that he had earned and seen. And as the eldest of 5 children, and taking on a challenge to me is a challenge. It's not necessarily looking back and seeing what somebody else did. It's the challenge. I became a veterinarian. I was told I couldn't be one by people, and I'm going to be one, and I was one. When I ran for this position, there'd never been a female councillor here in the MD of Willow Creek, never mind a Reeve who was female. So I drew upon what my father had done and used it in how to act, but also having realized that things had changed. I had been in governance roles before and learned what governance truly was. And I think that helped me, not necessarily knowing everything that you come into, because you're going to experience new things and challenges, right? But I guess I've always been the kind of person that you throw a challenge at me, if I know I can try and do it, I will do it. If I can't do it, I will tell you I cannot do it. So that's maybe not quite answering
it. Does
totally
answer my question, but it begs the question, what does good governance mean to you then? Because you're right. The role of the municipality is to deliver good governance to the residents of your community. But if I go ask 100 people of Willow Creek what good governance is, I guarantee you I'm going to get 100 different answers, or people are going to go, who are you? First off.
Right.
Second question will be, who sent you here? Third question will be, why are you asking me that? But to the Reeve, to Maryanne, to the person sitting in front of me right now, what does good governance mean to you, and how do you utilize that analogy, or that what you believe is good governance in your day-to-day work as Reeve of the MD of Willow Creek?
That's a big question, because you're right. It could mean different things to different people.
But you're around the council table. And
I'm around the table, and I have to work with my council. The first thing, and you asked me the question, how do I want to be addressed? And first of all, when I look at it, yes, I am the Reeve, I don't expect to be called your worship. That's a totally different ball game to me, because there are days that people don't want to worship me, and there's days I look in the mirror and would say the same thing. But on the other hand, I do take the title of Reeve seriously. But I am only the first of all the elected officials by that title, because I still am a councillor, number one. I still have to be accountable to the people that voted me in. And essentially, I do work for them, not for me, but for them. But on the other hand, when a decision is made, it's not made just by me. I try and represent the people as best as I feel they would want to be, and honestly. But the fact that there's 6 other councillors that sit around that table that represent the whole of this MD, and I am the Reeve of the MD, of the whole of the MD. So when we speak, I don't speak as an individual. If I speak, it's my council that speaks. And governance to me means all of us together looking after all of the people in our MD, whatever it might be. There could be a specific issue in another councillor's division. But if it has priority in our planning, that's where it goes first, not to my people. But if somebody from my division calls and they don't agree with me on something, I certainly still bring that issue forward, so that you want to listen to the people that put you in, because that's who you're representing. And to me, that's the best kind of governance we can give, if we can allow people to speak, let their voices be heard, and then a decision is made.
Can I challenge you on that?
You sure can.
I will agree with you that the voice of the people who have elected you, is probably the easiest to listen to, because they're the ones who are engaged. But I often hear this saying that there's the 5-15-80 rule in municipal politics. 5% of the population, you're smiling, so you've heard this, 5% of the population is engaged and they will vocally address you on the issues. 15% of the people say, we're okay with the way things are going. We're watching what the 5% is doing, but when we speak up, we'll try to hold them to accountable, that 5%. Then the other 80% go, what? Who's my counselor?
Mm-hmm.
How do you make best decisions when knowing that the majority of people are not engaged in, and I'm not saying in Willow Creek, because Willow Creek might be the exception. Tell me if I'm wrong. But when I speak to municipal leaders, I get a sense that as long as my property taxes are low, my garbage is picked up, and there's water when I turn on I turn on my shower in the morning, I really could care 2 iotas of what's going on at City Hall.
And you're right. I know that's true, because if it's not hurting me, why should I say anything?
Yep.
But it's when it affects them directly that they're here. We saw that definitely with renewable energies. This MD has been one of the predominant players at RMA conferences on how we can address renewable energies coming in to agricultural communities and taking up good land. We've been, and I'll use the word fighting, we've been literally fighting and trying to defend our positions on several of these issues. You can ask Nathan Newdorf, for example, because we're always on his case.
I know that for a fact, because I believe it was Jason Snyder, the Reeve of Vulcan County, said, yes, us in Willow Creek.
Yes. And Jason can attest to that very much so. But when we've had the AUC approve something, which we have tried to argue
So for those
against,
who don't know, the ECU
Alberta
is...
Utilities Commission.
Thank you. Just want to make sure.
And they're the ones that anyone in renewable energies makes application to first. We have always contended they should come to the MDs first, or the municipalities first. But however, once they've been approved and they come back to, the developer comes back to us and asks for permission for development permits. Many people then jump in at that stage when it's already been approved.
Yep.
We try to communicate. We've sent out, we go in newsletters. The press always reports it. But people literally come and say, what are you doing for us? We never heard from you. And that is where you're at that 80% that say, and then you say to them, where have you been? We have been beating the bushes. You get a newsletter. And that's been one of our goals, is to increase communication. And we have ultimately, our administration and we as council have tried to do that. But you're right. until it literally hits them smack dab in the face, they don't come here.
Well, and then there's the flip side of that, and you're right. You can have your Facebook pages, you can have your websites, you can have your emails, you can have the press. There's always going to be that one person who says, I didn't hear. And when you ask them, what avenues do you get your news? And they say, Facebook, website, newspaper. And it's like, well, it's been there. Again, it's that reactive rather than be proactive on issues.
Right.
So with that in mind, you know that when you make a decision around that council table, using the good governance that you talked about the whole council working together on an issue, whether it be a Division 1, Division 3, Division 8, doesn't matter. You have to make the decision and you have to raise your hand and put your hand up. There's going to be people in your community, and I guarantee you after almost 12 years in office, you have come to this realization, people will not be 100% behind everything that you do. You'll always have your contractors. How do you handle and make best decisions for the community, knowing that people are just going to be upset with how you have voted?
That's happened. I think that, they'll come afterwards and say, well, why did council decide to, do that? And I think most people are very reasonable. There are some that you're never going to please. I don't care. When I was in business in my clinic, there are people you're never going to satisfy, ever, no matter what you do. But I'd say that 99% of the people out there that I've ever had come up to me and say, why did you guys make that decision? Once the decision is explained to them and why and the reasonability of it, most people calm down and they're pretty good about it.
How often is it just people wanting to be heard?
I'd say 100% of the time. And that's why I mentioned about listening to people and hearing them. We saw that with Grantham when they dissolved and they voted to be not a town anymore and come into the MD. We just saw that people wanted to be heard, and and as a counselor, I believe that today. I can get phone calls, and I very rarely get phone calls, which is odd because people say, as a counselor, you should receive several. But when I do know that they're from people who have legitimate concerns, and they just want to be heard. And if you take their concerns forward, they're really happy with that.
Okay, so I'm going to flip that statement on your head because it's a line of questioning that I hit home a lot on this show. You know the municipal jurisdictional role. You know what the municipality should and shouldn't be doing. Mm-hmm. The province has their own role that they have to play. The federal government has their own role. But when residents come to you, I would put dollar to dime right here, right now, that they probably know more who you are than their MLA or their MP because you're in the community. You probably go out to the grocery stores. You go out and people might see you. They might see you at a community event. The MP's job is a lot larger than the MD's role, so that means you're going to be in more locations than your MP and the MLA as well. How often are you finding people being frustrated with the municipality on issues that the municipalities don't have a role in playing? Healthcare, education. I'm asking a double-edged sword. I'm asking a political question here.
It's a good question. It really is, because I think that municipal politics has evolved over the years where we've become more involved in different things that originally municipalities were involved in. At one time, we were supposed to be just roads, gravel, those kinds of things. Now we're involved, as you'd say, medical clinics. We are part owners of medical clinic in Nanton. We own the one in Claresholm here, and people come to us with questions about them. We're involved, of course, with FCSS. We're involved with libraries. We're more and more involved in different things, yes. And I think that where the skew comes in is when people, I'm going to use renewable energies. That's a perfect one because people come to us and say, why aren't you doing this for us? We'll say it's not our role. We're superseded by the AUC or with intensive livestock operations or CFOs, confined feeding operations in particular. The NRCB, the National Resources Conservation Board, oversees us. Why are you not involved? This is our land. We're in our MD and we're not involved. And so there's a lot of frustration more so on that part than we hear on the medical front. We do, as people, realize that there's a lack of physicians. We have problems with staffing. We have problems with emergency rooms closing. We don't hear so much about those issues as it does involve directly their land. So say renewable energies is a huge one here. So yeah, there is some, when you go to the post office, people will ask you what's happening with this or this and that, but not so much, because we don't get involved directly in health or whatever, but we certainly bring those issues forward.
Well, I think, and please correct me, please apologize. I'm not getting my complete facts right here, but I was speaking to a municipal leader, I believe in either was Saskatchewan or Alberta, and they told me point blank on the show that more residents come to their councillors because they often find that when a councillor or a Reeve or a mayor emails their MP or their MLA, there's quicker response time for that comment back to say, oh, my mayor's contacted me, the Reeves contacted me, so I'm going to get back. And if it was just average Joe on the street, there's probably less of a chance that they're going to hear back in a timely fashion, because I would hazard a guess that you probably have the MP or the MLA's phone number in your phone right now that you can text them up and say, we have an issue coming up, we need to deal with it. So how often is it just people they've exhausted all their avenues and they say, okay, I've elected the Reeve, go deal with it, Maryanne.
Right. Actually, I think that depends on your MLA or your MP, very much so, because to be honest with you, I don't have that problem here. I can approach Chelsea Petrovic at any time.
Mayor of Clare's Home, just FYI.
Yes, or John Bardo, who's our MP. But I really feel that, like in particular in John's case, people can get a hold of him very easily.
Okay.
They don't seem to have a problem. And maybe it's my misperception, but even with Chelsea, yes, it can be hard to get a hold of them sometimes, but I've never had to do it on behalf of a resident.
Huh.
And maybe that's the exception. I don't know.
I love it down here in Willow Creek. Maybe I should move here.
I honestly haven't had people approach me to say, hey, how can I get a hold of, we're on this issue. And I think maybe in the 12 years I've had one person maybe ask a question. But other than that, no, I feel that our MP and our MLA right now are doing a good job that way. And maybe I'm in the dark. I don't know. But
hey, if you got the pulse of the community, you're the Reeve.
Well, no. The pulse of the community can be totally different. I mean, I could go to Clare's Home here and have a different pulse because I don't live here, but Councillor Alm does and Councillor Hemingway. So
before we turn to the MD as a whole and go into some of the challenges and accomplishments that we want to talk about, I want to ask not a simple question. It's more of an open-ended question for yourself. You're one person around that council table. You have 6 other people that sit around you, 7, including yourself. And you mentioned it at the top of the interview, and I want to dive into it a little bit, because you are elected by the people of your community, the district that you represent. But when you're sworn in, you are not sworn in as District 3, District 4. You're sworn in as your MD councillor. You represent these ridings, but every decision has to be looked at through an MD lens, because you can't pit one side versus the other. But you and I will probably both agree that you do not have unlimited supply of money where you can solve everyone's issues and fix everything. How do you balance the needs of each individual community, each individual district with the community as a whole? And I quote Spock on this show a lot from Star Trek, but how do the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one? How do you put perspectives on the needs of the many of the MD of Willow Creek with the perspectives of that one issue, that one person that they believe is the biggest issue to to them? That pothole, that street, that road that needs to be graveled is the biggest issue to them. But you know that you can't fix everyone's problems tomorrow.
No. I think That's it's an interesting question, because I know years ago even, and it still happens today, people get elected and they come on and they have a reason for
The one issue candidate.
The one issue candidate. And they're there for that reason. And I think that it has to do with good planning. I think that you as an MD have to have a really good plan. And we have definitely worked on a strategic plan. When it comes to transportation, we have a transportation plan. We basically try and have a plan for anything. Now, there's always emergencies that come up. But if you have a good plan in place and can explain it to people on a priority basis, that what you're doing, and no doubt emergencies come up that have to be addressed, and that's not a problem. But
it's the name of the game.
Exactly. But we do have regional recreation. We have regional this, and we have plans. And I think that has worked very well for us. Our administration has done an exceptional job with that, and it really is good. And I can be honest, around the table, we do discuss issues that come up in different communities, and they can be addressed, but they're not controversial. And if they fit the plan, it works. And if it doesn't, we work it out. And doesn't seem to be a problem.
Oh. I want to turn to my next segment now, and that is the MD as a whole. And before I do this, as I always do on this show, because I'm guaranteed to get at least one email saying that the Reeve doesn't speak for the council, this is not what this interview is about. The next line of questioning is about the challenges and the accomplishments. You are one person on council, as we just mentioned. You need a majority of your council members to vote in favor of any motion that gets passed to do anything. This is not a motion of council, not a policy of council, not even a direction of council. This is the Reeve's opinion and her opinion alone. Now, it may line up with what's going on at council, but at the end of the day, it's still her opinion. Reeve, in your opinion, as of recording this at the end of January 2025, what do you believe is the biggest challenge or challenges facing the MD of Willow Creek today?
I think, and we've talked about this, is the renewable energies situation. I think that we still have a lot to do.
Like what?
We are we've pointed out to the government on soil classifications. They're using a classification that the Alberta government does not even use itself in crop insurance to delineate the lands, number one. Protection of good agricultural land, because one of the basis of our MD is to preserve agriculture as a way of life and what we have. So that's one of the issues with the AUC and the government. The other is the National Resources Conservation Board, the NRCB, with CFOs. Water is a huge issue in this area. We've had the Willow Creek, not this last year, but the year before, completely dry up. So we are very aware of water issues in this area. And we've had people's wells who've gone dry. When the NRCB has applications, and then there's a water application for water for these confined feeding operations, we found a huge disconnect. And we're constantly working with the government on that one right now. Because as you're aware, with AUC and NRCB, people go to them with their applications, and we could have a little bit of a say now in them, because we can have standing at AUC, and we can actually, we've actually submitted our observations to NRCB, but they're never listened to.
Yep.
So we're still working on those issues for ratepayers overall too. Not that we're against these, necessarily against renewables or CFOs. It's just that we feel that as a local jurisdiction, we want, as a municipality whom we're responsible to be able to say, this is the right fit for the right area, and it works well in that area. The other thing, I guess, those are two big issues for us.
Can I pick up on the water? Can I pick up on the water thing? Because I was mentioning this a few days ago to actually up in Lacombe County with their Reeve. I'm driving around right now, and if you would have transposed me back 1 year, there would be snow on the ground. Mm-hmm. I'm looking at this window right now, and there's not a lot of snowpack. And last year, like and I'm not trying to be Chicken Little here, but last year the sky was falling because agricultural communities like yours rely so heavily on the snowpack, grazing, crops. Are you concerned heading into this year that with the amount of moisture that we are not seeing, that we have traditionally seen, with you talking about wells going dry, the water level table, and I'm not trying to be confrontational, that we could be in for a worse year than we expected even last year?
As a farmer and a rancher and having been born on a farm, never count your chickens before they hatch.
It is only January.
It's only January, and most of our moisture usually comes in the spring.
Okay.
It usually comes, and rains come in June.
But is this normal?
We've seen it before.
Okay.
We've seen it in other years where you have, and then you get February, and then you get March, and you're going to get massive snowstorms. And if the fogs have been any indication, the end of February, first part of March, somewhere in there, or is it April because I come back 90 days, if you believe in that, doesn't depend on how much moisture you're going to get. But I'm a little more confident this year because the dams are sitting, the Old Man Dam, I believe, is over 50% full, whereas last year it was not.
Okay.
And Pine Coulee, which supplies the water for here, actually has water in it. And when you've got that kind of reserve so far, and then you hope for the rains to come, I'm optimistic. I think that, and maybe that's the farmer in me, you're always optimistic.
Yeah.
Mother Nature can come through. Last year was the first year we did not declare an agricultural disaster, and we had for 2 years before that. So, yes, there were some areas that maybe crops weren't exactly what they wanted to be. They were a little bit lighter, but it was a better year. And so I'm optimistic for 2025 and see what happens.
Looking at the water issue as a whole, this area has been seeing its fair share of news with everything going on in this neck of the woods. And for anyone knows, it's coal mining I'm talking about. With CFOs that you're talking about with the national board, do you get a sense that is it steady as she goes, or are you optimistic that things are going to get better for the water levels and the security of your water in 2025?
How do you mean the security of your water?
Where you have safe water supply in this area? Because when I was up in, I think it was, and correct me, I'm just making sure I'm getting my locations here. Just down south, I was talking to the Rita, which is South Grow, which I believe you're a member of. We were talking about that being a concern because there is a runoff from some potential contaminants, but it doesn't sound like you have any concerns, or do you?
No, at this point in time, I don't have any concerns. When I first came here in 1975 as a young, newly graduated veterinarian, there was actually, they ran into selenium deficiencies here in their cattle.
Okay.
So, and that had to do with...
I love a guest who can just quote selenium deficiencies to me.
Yeah.
Just make it sound like it's like everyone knows what a selenium deficiency.
Well, that's a little bit of a problem because our own fertilization techniques in farming can actually tie up vitamin E and selenium, and so no, I think at this point in time, I think that things are going well.
Okay.
And
then I want to flip the script onto the renewables because it seems to be something that you want to chat about because you talked about it in the first part. We'll talk about it here. So we had a renewable pause last year from this provincial government, and I spoke to Jason Snyder, the Reeve of Vulcan County, during that time. What is the big impact that renewable has had on the MD of Willow Creek over the last few years? Because it seems like people want to start solar farms. They want to start windmills. Are you seeing an impact on Willow Creek from that and taking that prime agricultural land?
Yes. And I don't like to call them farms. I like to call them projects.
Okay. And
because
I
they're not farms.
Okay. I will
correct you on that.
I will use that word, the solar projects.
We've been hugely impacted, and I think
for the good or the bad?
In some cases, I'd say for the bad.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why. The first one that came to us did it right, and that was just
where?
east of Claresholm.
Okay.
And they actually came to us first for the development, for the permission. They didn't go to the AUC first. And we went through the process of looking at it, and they were on marginal land, saline land, for except basically maybe 1/4, and they zoned it out appropriately. And they went ahead, and they did it well. The only problem with that is we still see weed concerns. And farmers next door to it don't want that. They tried to put sheep under it. It didn't work. Did not work. And so these are some examples then that led us on to the one that came northeast of Staveley. They applied to us. And they actually got AUC approval first. And
so they did the reverse from the original.
They did the reverse from the original one. And this is very good soil. They actually could grow alfalfa on there and get better crops than we could down south with irrigation. That's how good a land it was. So we had people that went against it, and we tried to overturn it. The government, lost our appeal and said no, because MGA Section 619 AUC supersedes us. They trumped us. That's 2 projects there. Now we have another one just southeast of here by Woodhouse that again has got approval and going through on good agricultural land. How many, and I forget how many quarters that is huge. And they want to do agrivoltaics on dry land. And we are asking for a definition from the government about agrivoltaics. What qualifies as that? And how do you do it? So that's 3 projects now. Now we have 2 more coming. We have another one just east of Grantham. We have another one west of Fort Macleod. Yes, and more coming apparently. So we are getting hugely impacted. And people are asking,
within the buffer zone between the Rocky Mountains and
you have to be
the setback. Sorry,
the setback for viewscapes.
Yeah,
that one is contentious. Yes, that could be looked at. That's west of Fort Macleod. In fact, right now it's in abeyance until the first part of February. We're still talking with them about it. So yeah, and the town of Fort Macleod has concerns about it. So their concern is fires, battery. The one north of Fort Macleod, east of Grantham, is another one. And opposition is becoming more to it. But so
how do you balance that? Because we talked about balancing the needs of the many out needs of the way, the few of the one. But businesses are businesses, and businesses will have the right to set up. If they want to try to set up, they go through the proper channels. Right now, the proper channels is goes to AUC and then go to the provincial government. I'm assuming you want to see that completely overhauled and be the municipalities be the first point of contact, and then the AUC give final approval.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you why. And when you talk about why we're concerned, we've seen some of these companies, they come in, they apply for it, but they've already sold.
Yeah.
They change hands 2 or 3 times.
Well, look at all the oil and gas companies that changed hands.
And that's our worry, going back to oil and gas and left hanging. Yeah. So if you have these projects sitting there and they're developed and they haven't even clarified the reclamation on these things yet, guess who that comes back to? It comes
people.
Comes back to the landowner first. And if they're going to wash their hands of it, because if they haven't looked after themselves correctly with the right kind of bond, they're going to end up holding the bag for reclamation. These companies are claiming, some of them, that they can get up to 70% of the reclamation costs covered by recycling. That's what they're claiming right now. So, but you and I both know, if that doesn't happen, the landowner can't cover it. It comes back to the MD, and the taxpayers of this MD get hung with this.
Have you heard any examples of that happening in Alberta so far?
Not.
But you have
I can't recall. We have huge concerns because look at oil and gas.
And do you have any of that here? Do you have any of those?
We have
zombie
some. We have some, but not like
compared to what
Vulcan or some County of Vulcan or Cypress or Newell or any of these other ones that are huge. No, it hasn't affected us as bad. And I think that's why people look at us. And I know that Cardston County with a wind project that got canceled because of viewscapes. That's huge money to them in taxation. And people say, oh, you look at the taxation money you're getting. But people also forget that depreciates out very quickly. So if you don't make hay while the sun shines and use that money that comes in as tax revenue, then you're hung. But if we get hung with that, that's huge to the taxpayers, and that's not good if they can't do that. So we've asked the government on reclamation, they should be putting up the money up front in some kind of bond. When you have a gravel pit, class 1 gravel pit that applies to us first before it gets permission from the government, they have to put up a bond to reclaim that prior to even operating. So why can't these renewable energies do the same thing?
I'm going to ask another very stupid question. Have you figured out why the province won't change this? Because you are not the only one who I've had this conversation. And I will guarantee you, I'm going to be speaking with the County of Newell later on this week, literally on Wednesday, when the week that we're recording this, and I will ask them the exact same question. What's going on? Because I hear this in Tabor, the MD of Tabor. I hear this down in 40 Mile. I hear this in County. I hear this in the MD. It seems like everyone is saying the same thing. They're on the same page. But the province is saying, we're going to continue doing the way that we've done it.
I think the pressure has come from outside, and it's business to them. I think that they're getting, and don't quote me on this, but I think that there is pressure from the outside that this is a business model that they are going to use. The problem with it is that it's not reliable.
Were you hopeful last year when they came out with their recommendations of how they were going to change, and then...
We were very hopeful, but as someone once said to us, this is hopeful, but until we see it in actual regulations written down somewhere, then you can start cheering. But we haven't been cheering totally yet and we're still hammering away at it, because literally the soil classifications and reclamation and different things that I've indicated to you already are concerned.
So what's the biggest concern? Is it the reclamation or is it the soil?
It'd be both.
Is it both? They're both on par?
Yeah, they would be on par for us, because there are some lands here that they're saying are not, and they know that they're a different classification altogether. So
before I turn to accomplishments, I want to ask you one question just for my own sake. There's been a lot of talk in the last 2 years about infrastructure, particularly around rural infrastructure. Bridges are being just aging out of repair, and as much as you probably are in a better position than most of the smaller municipalities, you can't do it alone. How do you see the MD handling future infrastructure repairs heading into this kind of economic uncertain time that we are about to see? Let alone, let's not even talk about what's happening down south for a second. Let's just live in the world that we live in, and that is Canada. Do you think that the MD is in a good place, that it's able to handle its infrastructure challenges if it arises?
I think every municipality has struggled with this, and certainly has had that discussion around their table. And I know we just got a grant for, if you went southwest of here, there's a big green bridge that we finally got some funding to do, and that bridge will be repaired. But we still have many more. And I think that, I know that we have a plan, not to completely address everything, but looking to the future. And this is where renewable energies come in, and we've discussed this even, that people say, oh, you're getting so many tax dollars for this or that. And I think that if you look at it and it's going to depreciate out, I made the saying, hey, make hay while the sun shines. If we can utilize some of that monies and put it into savings or into accounts and keep that as reserves, so that we don't become totally reliant on the provincial government. And we're certainly looking at that avenue and discussing it. And I believe that our council has been very wise in looking at that, and our administration. So, yes, it is a concern. And I think that, we're not the only municipality that has bridges and culverts and different things that need to be looked at.
But do you think you're in a but do you think you're in a suitable place in 2025 at the beginning of it, that if there was happenstance to be something of a major emergency infrastructure-wise, bridge washes out, a road washes out, that you'd be able to say, okay, while it's not ideal, we are able to fix this right away?
I think so. I have a lot of faith in our current administration and our Director of Infrastructure, our CAO for sure. their knowledge and their capabilities and the planning that they're looking at in the future bodes well for the MD of Willow Creek.
I want to flip the original question on its head a little bit for a few seconds before we turn to the last segment, and that is, what's the thing you are proud of? What's the accomplishment that the MD of Willow Creek has done over the last 10 years that you say, or 12 years since you've been on council, that you look back on and you say, you know what? Even if I leave tomorrow and I say, you know what? I'm done. I've done my work. I can leave a happy woman. You look back and say, I've left the MD a better place because of this.
Just the fact that I think that people are not afraid to speak up.
Yeah.
People are not afraid to pick up the phone the office here, phone your counselor, talk about anything. I think we started last year, we actually started coffee chats throughout the MD. And although we maybe only got 2 or 3 people for the first one or whatever, we still had way more people than we used to have by having one open house or an annual meeting at the end of a year. So having these little coffee chats all over to tell people, hey, you come, we're not dictating the agenda. It's your meeting. Tell us.
Yep.
And we've had some excellent conversations. And I think that, if that's the one accomplishment that I could say that as a counselor and as the Reeve, to say to my fellow counselors and to my fellow ratepayers and people in the MD, just talk. Just don't be afraid, because I've always had the theory that out of disagreements come the best solutions. And if you can bring all those ideas together, and as one wise lady said to me in 4-H once, she says, when somebody's speaking, stop and count to 20 before you even answer, because it gives you the time to think about what somebody else is bringing forward. You may not agree, but after you listen, you might just pick 1 or 2 things out of there that work. And I think that's the problem in politics today, is that you're too ready to pick on one person or the other simply because it's not on your party.
Yeah.
And we need to listen and open up. I've always had this idea that, if we got rid of parties, we'd have better governance systems, period, altogether.
I would agree wholeheartedly on that. But I want to turn to my second last segment, actually, because I said it was my last segment, but it's my second last segment. And it's a 1-question segment. Okay. And it is 2025. And that means in 8 months' time, by the time this airs, people of the MD, people of Alberta will be heading to the polls to cast their ballots for their next city councils, next MD councils, next councils. Have you made up your mind if you're going to be running for re-election in 2025?
Yes.
Are you going to be running for re-election in 2025?
Yes.
Are you excited for the future of the MD after 2025?
I definitely am excited for it. I think that, no matter who runs, I think that it's viewed now as a more open MD and council to be able to talk and figure out where we can go for the future. I know that this current council has had a plan. They want to review that plan and look at it. So hopefully all of them are going to run again. But there again, doesn't matter. It's a democracy. People should challenge and should come out and run. And I've always said that, even for myself, that I like challenges and people should challenge me. And that's democracy, and go for it. Yeah.
Well, I will challenge her for a few questions on our social media pages, because right after this interview, I'm going to ask her a few questions off the record, but on the record as well, but only for social media. So head over to her social media pages. I want to turn to my last line of questioning, and it's 2 questions, and it's one that's really near and dear to my heart, because I believe in this country, tourism is not something that municipalities talk about enough, but we all have hidden gems. We all have those things that we are proud of when it comes to our communities. When you look at the MD, what are the hidden gems that you look at and you say, you know what, if you are coming through this neck of the woods, even if you're an Albertan or someone from around the world, you need to stop in and see this in the MD. What is that for you? She's taking her 20 seconds, FYI, so that's why she's pausing for a few seconds.
Well, it's just that there are so many things.
I'm asking the Sophie's Choice question.
Yeah, you just want the one answer.
Or give me a few.
Just to drive. Just take a drive down through the foothills or even through any of the towns and just take a drive. I marveled even when I drove up to the MD office today from east of Fort Macleod, and I always see something new and different in the foothills or, you know, and in the summer, the spring when the crops are being seeded and then when it starts to grow and the pivots. But we have so much in historic value here. You know, whether the museums in each of the towns or whatever. But to me, near and dear, I'm close to Fort Macleod. There's the buffalo jump. There's, you know, different things there.
That's right in the Willow Creek.
We have the buffalo jump for sure.
So for those who don't know, that is the head smashed in buffalo jump,
the World
which
Heritage
is a
Site.
UNESCO World Heritage
Correct.
Site.
Yes, we do. The RCMP at the fort in Fort Macleod, because of course the Northwest Mounted Police are very instrumental in the formation of the RCMP in this province. I think that's really crucial. The Redcoat Trail it's in the MD of Willow Creek all the way up to the Highwood, to High River. The markers are still there. We look after them, and when you go there, you can scan actually and get historic value. So it's there.
So you guys have a lot to offer.
Granham itself has an old jail, different things in Granham that when it was a town, it, you know, historically, George Wesley had the baseball team there. The Granham White Sox, I believe they were called, and went to Lethbridge as a baseball team. So there's a lot of heritage in the MD of Willow Creek, not just, you know,
Get out and explore is what she's saying.
Exactly. We have a lot here to offer. Clare's Home has a tremendous museum here.
It does.
Yes. And
Stavely... I'm still trying to figure out why this area is so instrumental in putting up airplanes in every their communities. Yes. I'm not sure if that's an old air base that was around here.
Just east of me at Pierce.
Yep.
East of Fort Macleod was an Air Force base.
Really?
Yes, the airport dairy, the Van Heerdens still have that. It was an old war trading station just north of Fort Macleod. There was another one like here at Clare's Home. Yes, so there's a lot.
I've asked that to about 5 different Reeves and Kesslers in this area. Not one of them's been able to answer that question.
No, Pierce Airport. In fact, we have some of the old runway stuff we use for the cement barriers for a fire pit. Yeah. That
sounds awesome. I need to go down to Pierce.
Stately had first indoor pro rodeo.
I knew that. That's a beautiful welcome signs.
Yes.
I want to ask my last question. We started by talking about you. We're ending by talking about the MD. And in your own words, and I think every municipal leader knows how to answer this, but let's put it on the record. In your own words, what makes the MD of Willow Creek such a unique place to live, to work, and to raise a family? The $1 million question.
What makes it unique for me? Well, the reason I came here was because of my husband. So
there you go. If you want to find a husband, ladies.
Actually, I met him before I went to veterinary school. So I got a job in Fort Macleod and I met him and I came here. I love farming and ranching. This MD definitely portrays that in every sense of the word, from the flatlands to the foothills to the mountains. I like that within 1 hour I can be in the Crow's Nest Pass in the mountains visiting. We have so much here. We in my opinion, we almost define Alberta when you look at territories, you know, and what we do. It's unique. The people make it the best, I think. That's what, for me, you get a nice variety of people, and it's been great for my kids to grow up here, my grandchildren, and hopefully they come back. My grandson is in Arizona right now going to college, and he looks at it and he loves it down there, but it's just, you know, you don't have the variety that you have up here. You don't have all 4 seasons. You don't have that.
All 4 seasons within an hour drive.
Just and some days it's within an hour here. No, having been born and raised in the County of Lethbridge, I will say that, and then coming here, it's home, and the people make it the best.
Well, Reeve, Maryanne, I want to thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for sitting down and doing this.
You're very welcome.
I never know what to get from these interviews, but I got a true true new motto that when I talk to people, take 20 seconds.
Yes.
Think instead of just assuming what they're going to say and then spitting out something. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for doing that.
Thank you for doing this. It was nice.
Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of Cross Border Interviews. Now, we hope you've enjoyed today's conversation and gained some valuable insights. To stay in the loop with all of our latest episodes, don't forget to subscribe to the show wherever you get your favorite podcast, or head over to YouTube and search Cross Border Network. For even more content and learn more about the stories and the people that we feature on the show, visit us online at crossborderinterviews.ca. Your support means the world to us, so share this episode with your friends, your family, or even your community to help keep the conversation going. So until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and we'll see you next time here on Cross Border Interviews. Till then, everyone.